Grand Rising, everybody. Natalie coming to you live. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Salud. By Xixi. Awesome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Um, just so you guys know, I have a special guest, Xixi, and she is actually one of my amazing peers. We were in a master's program together, Consciousness and Transformative Studies at John F. Kennedy University, now National Universities. And I was really very impressed with the way that she was able to connect with the material that we were working with in our consciousness and transformative studies. And in a way, I was very intrigued, by the way, with you, Shishi, just so you know. I'm sure I haven't told you that, but because there are some big concepts in consciousness studies that we work with. And really today what we're going to be talking about is how do you take those big concepts and how do you apply them to your life, because that's really, I think, the hardest part of consciousness and transformation and of the psyche itself. How do we take these ideas that are in our brain or these feelings and sensations and then transform them into something meaningful, and our life story as well? So I'm super excited to share also with Spirit and Coffee. There are some new things that are going to be happening as it develops. I'm doing some rebranding, and I'm very excited to share that later on. But Shishi, if you'd like to just introduce yourself, let us know who you are, where you're at, what you're up to, how life is going for you.
Sure. Yeah, so I am Xixi Qian. I am originally from everywhere, actually. I was born in China and I moved to Australia when I was 3. And then later on in my mid-20s, I moved to the USA. So I am actually a double immigrant. So I'm very familiar with the immigrant story and twice actually. And now I'm currently residing in Arizona. I'm a global citizen, I would characterize myself as. So I'm actually going to be going to Australia next week, and where I will plan to stay for the next 6 months or so. And I think that's really shaped my life, being somebody who is international, appreciating different cultures and diversities within people. And that's something that I bring to my education and my concepts and my personal brand. I believe I'm somebody very diverse and adaptable. And just like the broad scope of consciousness studies, there is so much that I want to enrich the world with on a practical level, as you said, Natalie, because of course we can always meander with these concepts in consciousness and transformative studies. And at the end of the day, it's really about applying them to our own lives. How can we benefit from this knowledge and wisdom? Because when we're doing a lot of readings, when we're immersing ourselves with material, if this is a particular interest of yours that you wish to study personally in your leisure, ultimately it comes a point where how do you integrate that knowledge so that knowledge turns into wisdom? Because it is really our ultimate personal journeys that matter. And perhaps that is what intrigues you into this kind of material in the first place. So I finished my master's last year, and I'm now pursuing my PsyD at Meridian University, which is also another transformative school. My particular interests lie in depth psychology, in humanistic and existential psychology, but I'm also an artist myself. I am a musician. I play classical piano. I've done that since I was 4. So it's kind of innately been a part of me. So I definitely resonate with artists and creatives out there. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I actually built and managed a surgery center and a medical practice out in the last frontier of Alaska, which was really a former life, a very intense and different. former life that has shaped me. So I also like to help entrepreneurs in their ventures and their missions, which I think really should be aligned to their sole purpose. And that's truly one of my messages that I want to really share with the world. So that's just a little bit about me, Natalie.
It's a lot. It's good. I love it. By the way, amazing pianist. Just awe-inspired by your stuff, really, honestly. I'm a lover of the arts. I do some arts, but I was telling Xixi the other day, I don't do art, but I have a lot of art. So I'm always the lover of the arts. I'm the admirer of the art. So I can sit back and be the ears for you. But also, I think what you said, and what I like that you're doing is the entrepreneurship stuff, because I know people that are, especially some of the listeners here, they are really immersed in, the spiritual aspect. And I noticed that a lot of these individuals who do that tend to have a really difficult time with asking for money or making a living out of it, right? Because we want to give back our gifts to the world. And because we have such bleeding hearts and we want to give back, sometimes we have a difficult time asking for money but we have to eat at the end of the day. And, so can you give us a little insight on that? Because honestly, I love the idea of spiritual entrepreneurship. I think it's something that's not talked about enough in our circles, because again, feeling like maybe, we're being greedy, and that's really not what the work's about. But again, like I said, we have to be able to feed ourselves. We have to be able to know our worth. We have to be able to say, I am worthy of this. So can you kind of speak to, I know you wrote a book about this, so can you kind of tell our listeners about this a little bit?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is you have to have patience because entrepreneurship is a journey, it's a process, it's not going to happen overnight. And the first step to it is going to be the inner work. It's not like how perhaps we are conditioned to believe we enter into careers like you land a job and then you're there next Monday. You're starting work at 9 a.m. It's a completely different model. It's
Hmm.
a completely different paradigm. So the first thing that's required of anyone who's even intrigued by the concept is you have to change your mindset because this is a hero's journey. You have to realize that it's a hero's journey. It's going to be different for everyone.
Hmm.
Perhaps you've seen role models of yours who've ignited a business in 2 months, let's just say, or a week, or it seemed to just happen overnight. First of all, don't compare yourself to that person's journey. And second of all, that seemingly overnight or fast success really was the culmination of a lot of that person's work
Hmm. Hmm.
after probably months or years. And I like to use the analogy of the bamboo tree. Like the bamboo tree, bamboo was one of the fastest growing crops in the world, really is, I think, maybe even the fastest growing tree. However, for it to grow so fast, you need to do a lot of work to prepare for the growth, for it to break out.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think it takes 10 years to really get get the bamboo, in its perfect state before it can actually shoot out. And that is sort of the journey of an entrepreneur. If you feel like nothing's happening and that it's just a dream, actually something is happening. The fact that you're even thinking about it, that's part of the process.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing I want to say to everyone is that you have to have patience and you have to trust the process that no matter where you are on your journey, it is the journey that counts and be prepared for this journey. You have to really want to embark on this journey as a form of your own self work. You have to see it as, okay, this is just an external manifestation of who I truly am. And my journey is going to be personal and unique to me. It's going to be very individual. And when you see it that way, things will just start making a little bit more sense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And for me, I've been reading and I've been telling people to read this book because for me it's just powerful, and it is a 300-day commitment. I always tell people it's a 300-day commitment. But if you do it, it's really good, and it's the greatest salesman in the world. Um but the principles, and that's what it talks about, that principles endure, and that it is a journey, and that not success isn't defined by everybody the same way, but failure is defined the same way by everybody, and that's our inability to reach the goals that we want to achieve. So everybody's goals are different, but what I love about it is exactly that. It's the principles that endure. It's the journey, the internal. One of the scrolls talks about um replacing bad habits with good habits, or reading. I'm on the second scroll. It's like, today I greet the day with love in my heart. And it's not, I want a bunch of money, I want all this or that. It's more like, I'm going to greet this day with love, and I'm going to be grateful for what I do have now, but I'm also going to persist until I succeed. And I'm not necessarily going to just give up per se, because it is a journey. And that book is pretty powerful as well. So yeah, thank you for that. I wanted to just touch on that a little bit before we get into the existential stuff we wanted to talk about today, because I think it's really important. And also for those who are interested in perhaps purchasing the book or getting access to the book, I will put that in the actual, when I close this up, I'll put Xixi's information there, also on my Spirit and Coffee Facebook page as well as Instagram. So if you want to get her information on that and read up more on that, we can definitely do that. So thank you for sharing. Um, Now I'd love to talk about, the existential. I know that you're going into depth psychology. You're going to be focusing on some pretty powerful things. Can you just give us a background of what is depth psychology, and how has it impacted your life, this journey that you've been on so far in consciousness studies?
Yes, so I would say that depth psychology, just as the term sort of delineates, invokes us to go somewhere within, to what is hidden. What is what are these unconscious images, the unconscious layers of meaning inside of us, the non-egoic layers, to use Jungian terms.
Hmm. Hmm.
What are these archetypal symbols that reside within us inherently? We all have them. And it's about excavating what is buried within us and using that knowledge, or really, truly, it's wisdom, and being able to enlighten ourselves with a more enhanced self understanding, self awareness,
Hmm.
and contribution to the world. So it really is about excavating, or like taking that well of water and going deep into the well and pulling out all the gunk, all the minerals, and all the richness and diversity from beneath, from the depths, to use that metaphor. So,
Awesome.
really, it's about tapping in to the soul.
Yeah, and you know what? I also love, the Jungian analysis. James Hillman he's probably, God, I love his work. The soul's code, right? Like for me, I
Yeah.
just resonate with that particular theory and model. And for some reason, because it is that, it's like digging deep into the soul, trying to tap into something that's deeper within you, and then also understanding that we have these perhaps patterns that are already inherent to us, and then how can we magnify those and share that with the world. Which to me, it's like, I love it because it's like kind of like, it doesn't matter, because like you said, it transcends the ego, right? It's deeper than that, and it's like the soul doesn't care. It's going to throw a temper tantrum. It's like, you need to pay attention to this no matter what. And I think some people just kind of like, shut up. Are they trying to ignore that? But it doesn't care because it's not trying to look good or be right about something. It just wants to express itself in its natural form, where society might say, well, that's wrong, or whatever, but that is what the soul is asking us to do. It's calling something deeper within us. And like you said, sometimes it's not so pretty all the time. It could be very gunky, and it uproots a lot of the different parts of us, but there's almost like this pattern that's inherently in us. And I believe that if people could really tap into that, would be really, really powerful. So my question is, like, how have you applied this to your life? Like, what are some practical things you've done, or what have you gone through yourself where you felt like you are maybe more aligning with your soul's code?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you use the term uprooting, which I think is a really powerful term because I would definitely resonate with that. It's not so much rooting as it is uprooting.
Hmm.
And I think I really like this model because it truly taps into the nucleus of who we are. And no matter what events or circumstances or crises that we are experiencing in life, whatever it is that makes us feel unaligned stems from that nucleus of soul. And it's about tapping in to the reason why we're here. And that's why I am so big on purpose, because we all have a purpose. And I think we become lost or disoriented and confused when we forget that. So, just like a tree has its own unique purpose, it's meant to spread its branches out and thrive and share itself with the world proudly. A tree rots and shrivels up when it's not being nurtured. And so do we, as complex human beings. And we all came here for different reasons and have different purposes. And I don't think there is a kind of a one size fits all or categorical kind of purpose for us, or a sort of a collective purpose that either you identify with or have inherited through your family or your religion or any other groups that you associate with. I think there is something that is very unique and an individual purpose.
Hmm.
And I think there can be a sense of disease or depression, anxiety, or just feeling out of whack, to use that term, when we're not aligned to that.
Hmm. So do you feel like you're aligning? So after all of the master's program, all of the processes we've gone through, everything that we've done, do you feel like you're aligning more to your soul's code, and what does that look like for you?
I do think that I am aligning more. And I say more because I don't ever think I will say, yes, I've got it mastered.
Yeah.
Because
No one can say that.
it's, like I said, it's a process.
Uh-huh.
However, you still can objectively measure it.
Mhm.
It's a sea journey. It's not a land journey. So it's very much a subjective experience. However, you still can um, form accountability towards, okay, am I making progress? And that one of the easiest ways of doing that is by looking back, because it's often hard to say, okay, where am I now? Like, you may have an idea, but you truly can see your own personal progress by looking back.
Mhm.
And when I look back, like I mentioned before, several years ago, I was in a marriage that I didn't feel truly aligned with me. And I felt a sense that I didn't really belong there. And previously, I was met with a lot of apathy. And that's actually a pretty horrible state to be in, when you just feel bored and uninterested in life, even if you have a lot of stuff going on around you. And that's how I felt several years ago. And it led me to it was really the catalyst to my spiritual awakening and how I discovered the program at JFK University,
Mhm.
the consciousness program, and began my work there. And I wasn't really sure where that was going to lead me. I was really just following my heart. I felt so compelled to the program. And I wanted to do something where I followed my heart for a change because prior to that, even though I felt innately that I was so passionate as a person, I still wanted to do things that I thought would give me security. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if that is a path that you're choosing to take, that's I don't. One of the first things of this journey to soul purpose and entrepreneurship is that we don't form any dichotomies, that we don't form any dualities between okay, heart and head. Everything should be aligned. And
Mhm.
if your journey entails having to pay the bills by doing whatever work, then that's fine. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you're less noble. It doesn't mean that this path is not meant for you. It's just we need to be very careful not to form these dualities.
Mhm.
So basically, my journey led from being in that medical and healthcare space, which I did do fairly well in, and then feeling bored and just having just this inkling of an interest that maybe life had more meaning than this. Just having just that sense of curiosity that maybe there's something that would be more meaningful and more balanced for me, and not knowing what that would be because I hadn't enlivened that experience yet. And I only knew what I knew, and I lived in this bubble. And then it was about breaking out of my shell and discovering who I am and paying attention to the inner voice, paying attention to the more feminine layers of experience by
Mhm.
going inward.
Mhm.
And naturally, that kind of took me into the descent of the underworld. Again, depth, descent into the underworld.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you know, the, in the Hindu pantheon, there is this goddess Lakshmi, and she actually comes from the depths of the underworld.
Mhm.
And it is from the underworld that she is able to come into this conscious lower world, or however you want to call it, and um, and provide this abundance. So when we go into those depths, uh, whether consciously or whether it feels as though there was some kind of greater force or reason for you to be plunged into that depth, and whether that depth presents itself through darkness or through um, troublesome or difficult times or through having to navigate childhood wounds or trauma, whether it opens up that Pandora's box, however way that manifests for you, I think that is really a critical part of building your character and allowing those shadow components to inform who you truly are, inform the soul's code.
Yeah, I agree. I have a question for you. You said something that, and I'm out of curiosity because I want to kind of understand what you mean by this. And I'm guessing I might know, but I want to ask you. You said that this is not a land journey, this is a sea journey. Can you
Yes.
explain that? Yeah, explain that to me.
Well, when you're a ship at sea, you could be traveling from point A to point B, and it looks exactly the same around you. However, when you're traveling on land, you see these, goalposts. Oh, we're here. Now we're at point A. The next place we're going to be is here, and things look different. The climate changes, and the landscape changes, and the colors change, and the vibrations and the frequencies of the areas you're at change. And to a certain extent, yes, they do as well when you're at sea. But it can be also frustrating when you're at sea because it looks the same. It was ocean around me and it's still ocean around me, and I don't know if I'm making any progress.
Got it. I see.
So, yes, yes.
There's like no
So,
milestones that you can point to. It's just a bunch of
exactly, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just this expansive vastness, and I
uh-huh.
feel lost either way.
Yeah. And
However,
the
you're still
ocean
making
too.
progress.
Yeah, and the
Hmm.
ocean too is kind of like
Hmm.
the metaphor for consciousness itself too, because you can dive in the water and there's depths that you
Yes, it's infinite.
it's infinite, it's huge, it's vast. And yeah, I just think
Exactly. And I
yeah.
think that is something that's actually scary, because that infinite concept of the ocean is just like the infinite concept of our own soul's journey. And whether that is a journey on the hero's journey for entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
or whether you're at the stage of healing and awakening to your higher self through dealing with battling demons, perhaps. I think um, there is infinite wisdom. And when you do individuate, to use that Jungian term,
Mhm. Mhm.
it can be so expansive. The process can be so infinite. You think, oh goodness, when is this going to end? When am I going to be at the next stage? Like, I'm at level 3. When's level 4 coming? And this is so individual that you can easily get lost in the
Uh-huh.
process. And I think that was one of my pitfalls, in that I just
Mm.
got lost in the ocean. I felt
Mhm.
like I didn't know where I was going. It all looked the same. I know I'm just sailing, and I kind of felt like, when am I going to see just a smidgen of land, just to show me that there is a light at the end of this tunnel? And I think what helps, if you are experiencing that dark night of the soul, or if
Mhm.
you're in this tunnel and you're wondering, when is this going to end, or when am I going to get through this? I think having your own personal um, goalposts,
Mhm. Mhm.
and by journaling, that actually is very useful, because you can actually define how you feel this day, what your goals are this day, what your thoughts are. Just, it's a great way to release and to have a dialogue with yourself,
Mhm.
because it's very personal. And assuming you don't share it with anyone, you are kind of talking to yourself without any constraint,
Mhm.
without anyone reviewing what you write or how you write it, without anyone saying, yeah, without feeling self conscious, because you're writing to yourself and you can let everything out. You can let all those skeletons in the closet out, and nobody cares, and nobody gives a damn whether you write well or whether you're forming proper sentences. And the other thing is, soul doesn't care. You're having a conversation with soul. And when you begin to have a conversation with soul, you'll realize that soul doesn't speak in the English language, or whatever preferred language you choose to work in. The language of soul is so different.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yep.
it's about learning the language of soul and
Yeah, I really like
communicating.
that. I just wanna
Yeah.
say I interject there. I really do like that. Learning the
Hmm.
language of the soul, like your soul. And that's another thing, and I just wanna point that out, is because you keep saying it and it's beautiful. Everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own code, and that's why I love James Hillman's stuff, because it's the soul's code and everybody's is different. It's not gonna be the same, and everybody has their own journey and practices, like you say. It's like that liminal space. And I think I was talking about this with Pam actually. And when we think about what I think about spiral dynamics, include and transcend, but the include piece becomes like you said, you can get washed up in all of it and you don't know which way's up or down. You don't know how you're going to get out of it. You're in a whirlwind, right? And you're confused and you're like, well, which way is up? Which way is down? I don't even know anymore. It's the practices that help us, the practical use, right, is of esoteric wisdom. That's why I call it that, because what practices can be put in place to help us move through it so that we can start to discover, those hidden pieces, but then also make use of them, also be able to, you know bring it into the world in a meaningful way, and really shape our life the way that we choose to shape it. And it's not an easy journey. This is like not for the faint of heart. I always tell my listeners this, spiritual journeys are not for the faint of heart. They're it's really a warrior's journey, to be honest with you. And you keep
Yes,
alluding to the hero's journey, right? Because when we watch these heroes journey, everything, they go out just kind of naively, like, yeah, I'm gonna go on this journey. And before you know it, they're facing, like you said, the demons. They're facing all of these monsters, these things that come up, and they're having to battle with them. And so it's not this beautiful laid out plan that people think it is. Some people, I wouldn't say all people, but some people think, oh, I'm going to be enlightened. Well, you have to know what you're asking for, because it is a lot. And these practices of journaling, super critical. And also, one thing that I just want to add is, you said no one cares what you're writing, and also you can burn it up if you don't want anyone to read it, right? And they do have
exactly.
rituals. Yeah, you can burn it up after you're done, just burn it away. um so what other practices, like when you're in that state of being, as well as journaling, what other practices have sort of helped you to kind of find your up, down, your north again?
Yes, for me,
Mhm,
I do dream quite a bit, and I do maintain a dream journal.
mm,
And I actually think if you want to be a dreamer, or
mhm,
if you're having trouble remembering dreams, in some ways it's a skill that you can build.
mhm,
So if you say, I just I have problems remembering dreams, or I just don't dream enough, or whatever the obstacle is, and if dreaming is really a practice that you would like to embrace, which it's a beautiful practice because it's so spontaneous, it's so unknown,
mhm.
and you just have to surrender to it, because sometimes you may not get a dream for a while. And then sometimes I'll get a series of dreams where every day I have very intense dreams and I'm remembering them. So that's the beauty about dreams. It's that it really reminds you that if you want to have a dream practice, you have to be receptive and you have to let go. You can't force it. You can't say, okay, tonight I'm going to dream. Okay, so damn mind dream. Please dream. Produce something for me. You can't do that. It either happens or it doesn't. So there are ways that you can foster it. Obviously, having that as an intention. Obviously, ensuring you have proper sleep. That's critical, because you can't really dream unless you are at that REM stage of sleep, and you need to be able to sleep deeply enough to induce that. So you need to, yes, that's the first and foremost um, practice, if you will, ensuring that you're getting enough sleep. And even if you still don't dream, ensuring that you get enough sleep is probably going to solve a lot of things in your life. Um,
Yes.
so for me, that was has always been very insightful.
Mhm, mhm,
And if you already do have a dream practice, what I like to do is I like to dictate my dreams, because I tend to remember my dreams best as soon as I wake up. And it's better, I think we have better recollection of dreams if the alarm clock is not so abrupt
mhm, yeah.
and just, you don't want to,
Pulls you right out.
you don't want that.
Jar you
So
out of bed
you
like,
want,
"Ah!"
right, right. You don't want something so jarring and shocking to your system that it's a little bit traumatic to wake up, because traumatic wake ups, many traumatic wake ups are not healthful. They're not helpful for inducing a state of connecting with soul.
Mm,
So you want sort of a gradual, if possible, wake up. And I know this can be asking for a lot, especially if you have deadlines to meet. I know you may not have the luxury or the privilege to say, okay, I'm going to wake up really slowly and just take my time with trying to remember my dream and then, log it into my diary, because you got to get to work at 9 a.m. and you got to get through traffic and you got to get out of the house and feed the dog and the cat or the goldfish or the kids or whatever. And that kind of trauma in the morning can just really ruin any dream practice just in and of itself, just the
mm,
stress of it.
mhm,
And I totally get that not everyone has that luxury, but um, obviously these are things that help. But that's how I've been able to maintain a consistent dream practice. It's
mhm,
slower wake ups if you
mhm,
have the privilege and the luxury
mhm,
to um, to have that. And then I actually dictate my dream, because I find that writing it down for me or typing it up or entering it in, manually somehow into a log, that uses a part of my brain that's the thinking brain, and it kind of actually makes it harder for me to remember things as soon as I switch to the thinking brain function.
mhm,
So I personally like to record it. I like to dictate it, because when I just say it out loud when it's still fresh, I can capture it more accurately and more vividly. And then I try not to interpret the dream when I am recording it, because it is definitely, there's a part of your mind that wakes up and says, hey, I want to interpret that.
yeah,
I just try to not interpret it at all. I just try to let whatever the visions and the images were just captured, and don't even interpret it. So, what's really interesting is whether you wish to interpret your dream or not later that day or that week or in a future date, whenever you feel called to interpret it, whatever that time frame is when I say you should interpret it, because sometimes I choose just to not interpret my dreams. And sometimes I choose to review my dream diary and go, oh, what did I write at this date? Oh, I totally forgot about this. What? Oh, this is so bizarre. And I review it and I say, wow, look at the pattern that was being formed at that time. Look at what soul was trying to tell me. And
mhm.
sometimes when I review past dreams, it makes sense at the time that I choose to interpret it. The
Oh,
wisdom,
mhm,
yes, actually, I've had several premonition dreams, but they didn't make sense to me at all at the time that I was having the dreams. So that's why I just didn't even want to interpret it at that time. But as the future unfolded into the present and I look into what I had dreamt about, I say, wow, I completely predicted this in my
like
dream,
it's like foreshadowing, right?
foreshadowing. But
Mhm,
it's not so much a aha, I'm right, but it's more so a wow, I have an inner voice that I really should trust.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, and that inner voice and dream work is very powerful. I love that you're keeping up with the practice of dream work. I personally cannot do I dream too much. It's like it's overwhelming for me. I know that there's like this it's a huge nugget for individuals like to really understand because it is the soul speaking to you. It's like these bigger patterns, these bigger um like archetypal images and stuff like that you can play with and look at. And I do remember doing the dream, we had to do the dream course. And I don't even know if that was part of our curriculum requirements, but I do know that when I did it, there were some amazing patterns that did show up. I was completely overwhelmed. I'm one of these people who dreams every night, remembers their dream every day. And but I feel like it is such a powerful um tool for individuals who are really like wanting to tap into like what is their soul trying to tell them. And it to me it sounds like your soul's code is kind of like foreshadowing It's like, here's what's to come. And I like the fact that you process it after the fact. I think that's a really important key, because sometimes we're we can't see the pattern right now. We can't really interpret it or understand it, and sometimes we have to walk away from it and then come back to it to really understand it. So I think that's a really good practice. So it sounds to me like you have like a ritual perhaps that has been helping you through these hard times, are finding your north again, or practices in place that'll help you get on track or move through the chaos in your life. It sounds like you have a daily ritual or a morning ritual. Is that the case? Is this like a morning routine that you do, or is it more when you actually have dreams that you remember?
I would say because dreams are so spontaneous
Mhm.
and they sort of shift, they're fluid is how
Mhm.
I would describe it. That even the practice of dreaming for me has been fluid.
Mhm.
And that's typically how I tend to relate anyway. I see my strength, or I guess really my traits, my archetypal sort of characterization is that I'm a fairly adaptable person.
Mhm.
So when I have actually set out rituals for dreaming, they sometimes just don't come to me.
Mm.
I just
Mhm.
don't have a powerful dream.
Uh-huh.
And that's the really, I suppose, curious thing about dreaming for me as a practice. It's that it's not like a recipe book formula. It's not a
Mhm.
cookbook formula.
Mhm.
There are definitely things that will help induce your dreams.
Mhm.
But I can't say that by doing X, Y, and Z at 8:30 every night creates a dream for me that is ultra potent. Um, it's really not a cookbook, and I think that's why I really like it, because it allows me just to be at ease when life becomes fluid, because all of life is fluid, and I think we have a lot of structures that have been defined in our lives through, the use of time, like 1 hour blocks,
Yep.
and the 9 to 5 structure, and the bus shows up at 7:32. So having these very exact um, measures of how we structure our lives, and dreams don't operate that way. They're serendipitous,
Mm.
and you it's very personal. Now, maybe having a certain ritual may work for you,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I'm not against that at all. What I would like to say is it's about finding what works for you. And it may be a trial and error approach depending on how you relate to life, because I'm a trial and error person and not everybody is. And living a trial and error life, it's not something I would recommend, because there is error, and you do things that you think, okay, that probably didn't work for me. However, I learned from it and I'm enriched by that. So uh, it's really about how you relate with the world. And if
Mhm.
you feel called by a ritual, then by all means, embrace that ritual. Let it be a form of your own wisdom.
I like that. Let it be a form of your own wisdom. It's really because it's so these practices are going to be different for everybody. This is something I constantly am saying, especially on my podcast. It's like everybody has their own way, and everybody has their own practices, and it's really finding the practices that work for you. Dream work is a very powerful tool. It's, I mean, it's the closest to the soul that we can get, at least in Jungian terms, right? It's like
Yes.
we're in total communication with our soul during, because we, like you said, we have to surrender to it. We're not, you can have lucid dreaming, but mostly you don't. I mean, it's very rare that you're having lucid dreaming all the time. You're typically surrendering to the narrative that's happening. And you're not fully controlling it. You're just allowing yourself to be a part of it, and then to really like interpret what is it saying, what do these dreams really mean. So it is a very powerful practice, and a lot of images show up, and stuff like that. So, and then there's big dreams, right, that constantly show up in life. I used to have a big dream I'll share with you real quick, Shishi, where I would dream that I didn't graduate high school, and then I'd wake up and
Oh,
I'd be
I've
like,
had dreams like that too.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Wait, did I and so I'd wake up, like, in a panic, like, "Wait, did I graduate?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I did."
Yes.
And
I've
it's
had several dreams like that
uh-huh,
actually. Yeah.
and you know
I
what
think
it
maybe there
was?
was some trauma from high school. I definitely had a lot of trauma of feeling perhaps inadequate, or that
Uh-huh,
when am I
uh-huh,
going to make it through this?
uh-huh, uh-huh,
And my learning experience in high school, I didn't feel that I aligned with that. It was something that I inherited.
mhm,
I didn't have
mhm,
really a choice of the school that I was going to in some ways. It was what my parents felt was convenient and which they could afford. And I always felt like, when am I going to get out of this? How am I going to get out of this? I ended up doing very well in high school at the end and getting a really high equivalent of the SAT in Australia. But I do remember that journey there was grueling. It was actually a hero's journey for me. I don't know what it was like for you, Natalie.
yeah. I just I think for me, I think the dream was occurring because it was the inadequacy. I think totally, like, I didn't get the education I wanted either, and I wanted to get my. This is before I got my bachelor's degree, my undergrad degree, and literally when I got my undergrad degree, the dreams went away. And I think it's just because I didn't feel like I wanted to go to a private school where my parents, sent me to public school. I just didn't like the
Me
whole.
too. Me
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was just awful, and I just had a bad experience, and the education system was terrible, and so, yeah, that's probably why we've see, and that's so I'm glad we talked about it, because when you talk about these big dreams, that's another thing that happens in dreams, is that there's these we tap into, like, this it's a bigger system that we're all interconnected to. And these reoccur, like, for instance, the bathroom dream, right? Where I already have this, like, anxiety around bathrooms, but when I have to use the bathroom in my dream, I always dream of the most disgusting bathroom
Me
ever. And
too.
yeah, so and these are
Me too.
and these are
Me
common.
too.
It's just
Because what is taboo and what is not usually spoken about appears in the depths of our psyches.
uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh.
And that is actually, it's just this unconscious buried layer. It's not all pretty roses. Some of it
No.
is, but we have to take the good with the darker sides of humanity, the unspoken parts of humanity, the parts of humanity that you don't really want to confront. That's the shadow component. Shadow doesn't exist if there weren't light.
That's right.
You're going to cast a light on something, you have a shadow. You can't
That's
escape from
no,
having a shadow.
no,
And
no.
what I do want to say though, based on my own personal journey through this,
Uh-huh.
my advice
Mhm.
actually to everyone is, no matter what stage of the journey you're going through, do what makes you happy,
Mhm.
because don't think of this as a kind of a sacrificial journey. I don't want it to sound like you're going to give up everything and it's going to be like an ascetic life for you. Because when I entered this journey, I kind of saw this duality that I had to just sort of relinquish my life and be ascetic.
Mm.
And I want to say it shouldn't be like that. I actually think it's important that you induce some kind of fun from this, and that you should actually pursue what makes you happy. And if you don't know what makes you happy, that's where the practices come in and help. But
Mhm.
really, you want to find what you do that just makes time pass so quickly, that makes the experience of time just fly by.
Mhm.
And there is always something. And if you don't know what that is yet, you will in this journey. Something will happen and you go, oh my goodness, like time flew. And I just wish time was suspended when I was doing this. And that's when we enter our flow states. And
Exactly.
when
Mhm.
we enter those states, that's when we feel most alive, most aligned to who we are. And you can say, well, I paint and I can paint for hours, but it doesn't make me any money. Well, that's a start, because I still think that there is something very powerful about turning your hobby into a business eventually. But it
Mhm.
first comes with realizing that,
Mhm.
yes, of course, this is your passion, or this is where you just become lost, but
Mhm.
so pleasantly lost that you just love being lost. And
Yeah.
that's something that's really powerful, because not everyone can be lost in painting or sketching or drawing or gardening or whatever that is.
It's
And
true. Mhm.
yeah, you have a gift there. And obviously, I think that a lot of the times we don't see our gifts as gifts, because whatever those gifts are, they're so innate in us. We just say, well, that's just me. I don't even see it as a gift. It's just who I am. And it may take somebody else to wake you up and say, this is a gift you have, and maybe you're taking it for granted, or perhaps you really will live a more meaningful life if you incorporated more of this into your being, into your daily routine, whatever it is, if you're a routine person, into something that you may want to express or share with the world, or not. It could be very personal. You don't have to share it with the world. Sharing something with the world is also another um, part of this journey that may or may not be for you. It's another stage of this process.
Yeah, that is a whole other process. Sharing, because sharing your gifts can, then the rejection and all that stuff could come in. And some people don't do so well with that.
Yeah.
And so that is like a whole other process. But sharing your um being immersed in something that you absolutely love, you're absolutely correct in that, time doesn't seem to exist. You're totally in a, like you said, a flow state, and doing what you're passionate about. And I think that everybody should at least have the opportunity to get to that state of being and experience it without, you don't have to make it a business if you don't want to. You can just allow yourself to experience what it's like to be in flow, because that is like the most magical part of our being. It's where the magic happens, the innovation, the creativity, our soul's expression. Hitting those flow states are like, there's no other bliss, in my opinion, than actually being in the flow of what our soul's being called forth. And I think you're absolutely correct. I've been very blessed to be doing the work that I love. And am I fully doing the work that I love? Well, part of it is, doing this work. If I could do this all day, every day, that would be it. But there's, I'm doing nutrition and all these other things that I love as well. And I'm applying this work to other parts of my life. So, you know, I think at the same token is like, yeah, I get to be in these flow states. Um, but I'm doing a both and, right? Which I think you talked about as well. It's like I'm building, if I'm not making money on the things that I love, then I'm going to make money so that I can do the things that I love anyway. You know what I mean? I'm going to
And that's
find,
how it
uh-huh,
starts off. That's
sure.
how it can begin.
Yes, exactly. To,
And
go ahead.
yeah, and that kind of revolves back to my point about patience.
Mm-hmm.
that maybe you have this vision board of you doing what you love and being paid for it, and you have no idea how you're going to get there. Well, this is a journey, so take a step at a time. And it may just begin with you doing what you love, just because it passes time so quickly and it adds so much meaning and joy to your life. And it gives you this hope or sustenance. And these are all very real reasons to continue it. And then maybe later on you build your confidence and you may share it with a particular community, or maybe you feel ready for social media or publishing it. And everything is a matter of timing as well. And that timing is unique for every individual. It may not be your time to go public. It may not be your time to go on social media and share your gifts with the world. Maybe it's simply your time to be lost in your own thought of whatever it is that inspires you, whatever your craft is or your art is. And it doesn't have to be a single thing. Like Natalie said, she has this nutrition part of herself that she chooses to offer to clients. And for me, I am also multifaceted. I'm a classical pianist, so I have a musical background. I have a lot of musical interests. I also have a lot of business interests as well. And have these interests in this space as well. And for me, it's about finding that integration point of utilizing the whole breadth and scope of my skills. And remember, skills are only built from talent. You can't give someone talent, but you can give someone skills. Talent and gifts are innate. That's where the soul speaks. That's where it's this voice inside of you, maybe when you were 8 years old and you always knew just within you that you'd be a chef, or that you always knew that you're an artist within. That's who you truly are. It's that deeper voice. That's talent, and that's where your gifts reside. And I always say it's really important to find what your gifts are and then turn your gifts into skills.
I love that. That is that's a perfect way to wrap it up. Turn your gifts into skills. And how do you do that? And I think that this podcast kind of goes over, some of at least Shishi's journey into how how she was able to do that, and then also, some examples of how I was able to do that. And pretty much the podcast is about that. It's taking your skills and turning them into something that, your gifts, and turning them to something that you can give back to the world. And that's really what this has always been about, the intention of Spirit and Coffee. So I think that's a perfect message. So Shishi, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us, and letting us know who you are. If you want, if you could tell people where to find you, that would be really great.
Yes, absolutely. Pleasure to be here. And you can find me on social media. My handle is Xixi Chen Win. That's Xixiqian Win.
Awesome. And some other things I'd like to do before we end this podcast is I would love to inform you guys. I've kind of been saying something, but we are in the works of developing a talk show. And the talk show is going to be called Women in Consciousness. And how soon it will come out, that's to be determined. However, be on the lookout for that. And we're going to have some very powerful women coming on that. And Shishi will be part of that process, which is really awesome. And I'm excited. And so this is like the first introduction to like something that's greater and bigger. For those listeners, if you have topics that you're interested in, or things that you want to hear about, please let us know. And we will take that into consideration for some topics that we will bring to the talk show. I'll be giving out the information of where you can find us when that actually goes live. But it is in the works, and it's something that I feel is I think it's going to be powerful to have insight from more than just, it'll be a few women. than more than just me. So expanding this reach, so that we can all support each other in the spiritual community. Um, Collaboration and integration, I think, is what's needed right now. And I'm very honored that Xixi will be a part of this journey. It's been a pleasure. I absolutely just love you. I think you're amazing. And I'm excited to connect with you even more.
Oh,
So
thank you, Natalie. Yeah, I am super excited about the talk show and I love connecting with you as always.
yes, so have a good day, everybody. Namaste. We will see you soon.
Namaste.
Bye bye.
Bye.